Alright, where do I even start with this? I never thought I'd be the guy posting on here, but here we are. I'm Ethan, and I've been married to Rachel for just over a decade. We've had our ups and downs, sure, what marriage doesn't? But I always thought we were solid, you know? Like, there was no reason to worry. We've got 2 kids, a mortgage, the usual stuff. Honestly, I figured we were doing fine. Lately though, things just don't feel right. Rachel's been different. I don't know how to describe it, but she's distant. Not in a we're going through a rough patch way, but in a I'm a stranger to you kind of way. It started a couple months ago. She joined this book club, yeah, whatever, she can read if she wants to, and suddenly, she's gone more nights than she's home. I didn't really think much of it at first. I mean, maybe she just wanted a break, right? But then it got weird. She'd come home late, always with this attitude, like she was irritated with me for asking where she'd been. Every time I'd ask her about it, she'd snap at me. Not in a playful, joking way. It was more like a don't question me type of snap. I'd brush it off, tell myself I was probably just being insecure or maybe I was overthinking things. But then it didn't stop. It got worse. And I started noticing the little things. Like how she was always on her phone. She'd leave it face down whenever I was near her, and if I got too close, she'd jump up and go do something else. And if I asked her anything about it, who you texting? She'd get all defensive. She's always been a little protective of her privacy, so at first I figured it was nothing. Maybe she just needed her space. But then one night, I saw her typing a message, and she quickly hid her phone when I walked into the room. That's when something inside me clicked. It wasn't paranoia anymore. It was like a gut punch. Something's up. I hate to say it, but I started checking her phone. When she was in the shower or doing laundry or anything where I had a few minutes, I'd sneak a look. I told myself I was just making sure I wasn't being crazy, that I needed some kind of proof that I wasn't imagining things. But every time I looked, I just found more stuff that made my gut twist even harder. And I know what you're probably thinking. Just confront her. But it wasn't that simple. I wasn't sure I was ready to hear the truth, you know? I kept thinking maybe I was just overreacting. Maybe I was just insecure because of everything else going on in our lives. So instead of confronting her, I decided to dig a little deeper. That's where things really started to unravel. Okay, so here's where it gets messy, eh? I guess the first thing I should mention is that Rachel's been acting like super secretive lately. More than usual, I mean. You know how sometimes when someone's lying, they overcompensate? Like they try too hard to cover up things, but in doing so, they just end up making themselves look more suspicious? Yeah, that's exactly what started happening. One night, she came home late, again, and I asked her how the book club meeting went. It was a Monday, so I knew it couldn't have been some wild weekend party or whatever, but the way she answered? So off. She got all defensive, like I was the one who was the problem. It was fine, she said. Why are you always acting like I'm up to something? That's when I felt that old familiar knot in my stomach. I'd asked a simple question, and she sounded like I was interrogating her. But the thing is, she had been acting weird, and I wasn't crazy for noticing it. And then there was the thing with the phone. I don't even know why I didn't realize it sooner. She always used to leave it around the house, just sitting on the counter, or on the coffee table, whatever. But now? She's got it glued to her hand like it's an extension of her body. I joke about it sometimes, like, what's with the phone? Is it glued to your hand? But she'd just brush me off with some lame excuse like, I'm just catching up on stuff. But one day, I made a huge mistake. I was helping with the dishes, and I saw her phone sitting on the counter. Now, I've never been the type to snoop like this. I've always trusted her, and trust's a big deal to me. But something was nagging at me. That feeling of something being off was building up and I had to know. So, I grabbed the phone. I wasn't planning to go through everything, just a quick peek at the messages, and then I'd stop. I unlocked it and, nothing. Just a bunch of group texts with her friends, some about the book club. I thought, okay, maybe I'm just paranoid. But then, I saw the notification from a random number. One text. From a guy. And I swear to God, I froze when I read it. The message said, I miss you, babe. Can't wait to see you again. Last night was amazing. My heart dropped. I wasn't even thinking straight at this point, just feeling sick to my stomach. But before I could read more, Rachel came out of the bedroom, and I panicked. I shoved the phone back on the counter like nothing happened, and she didn't even notice. She just walked straight into the kitchen and started getting a snack. But I noticed. I noticed everything. I wanted to confront her right then and there, but I didn't. I couldn't. I wasn't ready for it. Part of me was still in denial. Like maybe I was just seeing things, or maybe it was some mistake, or maybe… I don't know. My head was spinning. I just kept telling myself I needed more proof. I had to know. Alright, so after that text message, I knew for sure something wasn't right. But what really hit me was how Rachel's behavior shifted the next day. It wasn't just the usual distance anymore, it was the defensiveness. I don't know how else to explain it, but she was so on edge, like she was trying to cover up something, and the more I asked her about it, the more she clammed up. I tried to keep things casual. We were sitting at the dinner table, and I casually asked, "So, who's that guy in your text messages? He seems pretty friendly." I kept my tone light, like I was joking, but she snapped almost immediately. "Seriously, Ethan? You're going to go through my phone now," she shot back, her voice sharp. "I'm not doing anything. Why do you always have to make everything into something?" I didn't even argue back. I didn't want to. Instead, I just let the comment slide and finished my dinner in silence, trying to push the suspicion out of my head. But it wouldn't leave. I felt like I was living in two realities at once. On one hand, there was the Rachel I'd known for years, the woman who could finish my sentences, the one who I thought I could trust with everything. And on the other hand, there was this stranger, the one who had something to hide, and didn't want me anywhere near the truth. And that's when I started being sneaky. I feel so guilty about it now, but I couldn't help it. I wasn't thinking straight. I had to know. I wasn't going to let myself be made a fool of without a fight. First thing I did was install one of those location tracking apps on her phone. It wasn't even a good one, nothing fancy, just enough to give me an idea of where she was going when she left the house. I told myself it wasn't a big deal. It was just a safety thing, you know? Just making sure she was okay. But deep down, I knew it wasn't about that. I wanted answers. Then, every time she went out, I'd check the app. She had been going to the same places over and over, her book club, some coffee shop, occasionally visiting a friend's house. But when I looked closer, I saw something that made my blood run cold, a hotel. I thought maybe it was a mistake at first. Maybe she was staying at a friend's place that was near a hotel, or maybe she'd gone there for work. But no. I double-checked the date. It lined up perfectly with one of the nights she'd been out with the girls. So I did the thing I told myself I wouldn't do. I called the hotel. And when they confirmed her name, I felt like I got hit by a truck. She had been there. That night. I couldn't breathe. I hung up the phone, trying to process what I had just found out. But all I could think about was Rachel, lying to me. And not just once. This was more than a single mistake. This was an affair. And I had the proof. But instead of feeling some kind of relief, all I felt was a deep, aching fear. Fear of what came next. What did I do with this information? What did I even want to do with it? Should I confront her now? Or keep digging, see if there was more? I felt paralyzed by it all, like I had this nuclear bomb in my hands and I didn't know how or when to set it off. I'm not proud of it, but I couldn't stop. I kept digging. Every chance I got, I went through her messages, I checked her social media, I looked at the tracking app, all while telling myself I was just gathering evidence. But the truth? I didn't know what I was doing anymore. I didn't know if I wanted to expose the truth, or if I just wanted to keep pretending everything was fine. All I knew was that things were never going to be the same again. The more I looked, the more I found. And I couldn't stop myself. It was like I was in this weird daze where I knew I was walking deeper into this nightmare, but I couldn't pull myself out. Every day felt like I was living in a haze, trying to go through the motions of our normal life while everything around me was falling apart. Rachel didn't make it easy to keep things quiet though. She was getting sloppier with her lies. I don't know if it was guilt eating at her, or if she just thought I wasn't paying attention anymore, but the cracks were showing. One night, she came home after one of her book club meetings and she didn't even look at me. Just walked past me, barely said a word. That's when I knew. This wasn't just about her seeing someone else, it was the way she was acting like I didn't even matter. Like I was invisible. I'd been sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone, but I wasn't really seeing it. My mind was spinning, thinking about the hotel. The guy. the texts. And then something caught my eye. Her phone was sitting on the kitchen counter again. Not even face down this time, just out in the open like she didn't care. It felt like a sign. Like she wanted me to find something. But that's not what happened. I'm ashamed to say I grabbed her phone again. But this time, I wasn't just looking at her texts. I was going through everything. Her call log, her social media, her emails, even her photos. I knew I was crossing a line, but I didn't care. I needed to know. The texts were worse this time. Explicit, detailed messages. One of them was something like, "You looked so hot last night. I can't stop thinking about you." I felt sick to my stomach, but I kept scrolling. And then I saw a photo. A picture of her and this guy, laughing at a bar, close together, her hand resting on his chest. No mistake about it. She was in full-on flirtation mode with him. The man who wasn't me. That photo made everything feel real. I'd been hoping, some tiny part of me had been hoping that I was just overthinking things, that I was being paranoid. But this was proof. There was no doubt left. I don't know what to do with all this. Part of me wants to scream at her, demand answers, but another part of me wants to curl up and pretend none of it's happening. I mean, this is Rachel we're talking about, the woman I've built a life with, the mother of my kids. And here I am, holding this evidence that she's been betraying me. I still can't wrap my head around it. And then there's the guilt. Because as much as I'm angry at her, a part of me can't help but wonder, am I to blame for this? I've been distant, sure. Our marriage hasn't been perfect, but this? I don't know. I feel like maybe if I'd been more present, if I'd noticed sooner, if I hadn't been so focused on work or just going through the motions, maybe this wouldn't have happened. But then again, I wasn't the one going behind her back. So now I'm stuck. What do I do with this? Confront her? Call the guy and get him to tell me what's going on? File for divorce? Or do I try to fix things? Pretend this never happened? I've never been in a situation like this, and I feel like I'm drowning in it. Rachel came home late tonight, and when she walked in, she barely acknowledged me. Just grabbed her things and went to the bathroom. I didn't say anything. Part of me wanted to, but I'm not ready. I don't know if I'll ever be ready for that conversation. It's been a couple of days since I found that photo of Rachel and him. Since I uncovered the truth I didn't want to know. And I still haven't said a word to her. Not a single thing. Every time I think about confronting her, I freeze. I've come so close, but then the words get stuck in my throat. It's like I'm paralyzed by the weight of it all. Part of me just wants to leave it alone, act like nothing happened, and maybe, just maybe, I'll wake up tomorrow and everything will be fine again. But that's not going to happen, is it? No matter how many times I pretend I'm okay, I know what's going on. I know what she's been doing. Here's the thing, Rachel's not a good liar. I've known her for over a decade. We've been through everything together, good and bad. And when she lies, I can tell. But the way she's been acting lately? It's like she's gotten really good at it. She's been so careful, covering her tracks. But the thing is, I've been paying attention. And she's slipping up. Tonight, she was supposed to be out at her book club, and I was sitting on the couch, just staring at the TV, pretending to watch something. But really, I was just waiting. I had this feeling that she wasn't going to where she said she was going. So I opened up my location tracker. Sure enough, she wasn't at her friend's house like she said. She was at a hotel again. The same hotel. I could feel my hands shaking as I stared at the screen. It was like I was watching my whole world crumble into pieces, one pixel at a time. And even though I had all the proof, even though I knew what was going on, I still didn't know what to do with it. Rachel came home about an hour later. She walked in the door with that same fake cheerfulness she's been putting on, like everything was normal. "Hey babe. How was your night?" she asked, dropping her purse on the counter. Like she hadn't just spent the last few hours with another man. I didn't answer her right away. I just stood there, staring at her, trying to figure out how I could say anything without my voice cracking, without breaking down in front of her. She must have noticed the look on my face, because she stopped smiling. "What's wrong with you?" she asked, her voice suddenly defensive. "You're acting weird. Are you mad at me or something?" I didn't say anything at first. I didn't know what to say. So I just kept staring at her, trying to find the words. But the more I looked at her, the more I saw her for who she really was right now. She wasn't the woman I married. She wasn't the person I trusted. She was just this, stranger. I finally found my voice. "Where were you tonight, Rachel?" The words felt like they came out of nowhere, like I was outside my own body asking them. Her face went blank for a second, but then the mask came back on. "I told you," she said, a little too quickly. "I was at the book club. You know, with Lisa and the others." But it was the same story she always gave, and I wasn't buying it anymore. "And why is it that every time I ask you about your phone or where you've been, you get all defensive? Why do you hide it from me?" Her eyes flickered for a moment, just a flash of guilt before she covered it up. "Oh, come on, Ethan, this again? You're just being paranoid. I told you where I was. I'm not doing anything wrong." But she couldn't even look me in the eye as she said it. She was lying, and I knew it. I wanted to call her out on it, to scream at her, but I didn't. Instead, I just shook my head. "No. I'm not doing this. I know what you've been up to." That was it. I didn't say another word. I didn't even need to. The tension in the room was thick, and she knew it. Rachel opened her mouth like she was going to say something, but then she just shut it. And then, nothing. We just stood there, both of us waiting for the other to speak, and neither of us did. I don't know how long we stood like that, probably just a minute, maybe less, but it felt like an eternity. And then Rachel just turned around and walked into the bedroom without another word. She didn't apologize. She didn't try to explain herself. She just walked away. I wanted to follow her. I wanted to yell, to ask her how long this had been going on, who the hell this guy was. But I didn't. I just stayed where I was, in that damn kitchen, frozen. I don't know if this is the moment where everything ends, or if there's more to come. Part of me wants to just leave, pack up and walk out, but I can't. We've got kids together, and I don't want to wreck their lives. At least, not without being sure about everything. But I don't even know what being sure means anymore. Rachel's in the bedroom now, probably pretending to sleep. I'm sitting here, typing this out, because I have no idea what else to do. I can't keep pretending like nothing's wrong. I'm stuck. I don't know if I should confront her head-on, or just cut my losses and leave. But I don't know how to do that either. How do you walk away from everything you thought you had? I'm lost. I'm really lost. It's been a few days since that night. Since Rachel just walked away from me without a word. Honestly, I don't even know how to describe what I'm feeling right now. It's like I'm stuck in this weird limbo where I can't move forward, but I can't go back either. Every time I look at her, I see the person I used to know, but also someone who's completely different. Someone who's lying to me, hiding something I can't unsee. The silence between us is suffocating. It's like we're both pretending nothing happened, but everything has changed. She's been cold, barely speaking to me unless it's about the kids or some trivial thing. I don't know what she's thinking. I don't know if she feels guilty, or if she's just waiting for me to let it go. But I can't. I can't pretend like I don't know what I know. I've been keeping my distance too. I think she's waiting for me to crack, for me to blow up and confront her, but I just can't bring myself to do it. Every time I think about it, I get this sinking feeling in my stomach, like I'm not ready for the fallout. I don't even know what the fallout would be. Would she admit to everything? Would she lie more? Would she apologize? I don't even know if I'd believe her. We've been sleeping in separate rooms since that night. She hasn't tried to fix anything between us. I don't even know if she cares to. The only thing I'm sure of is that I can't keep living in this silence, pretending like everything's fine. I'm at a crossroads. I know what I should do, confront her, get the truth. But I'm terrified. What happens next? Do I leave her? Do I try to fix things for the kids' sake? I feel like I'm going crazy with all these questions, but no answers. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. So things have been pretty much the same since I last posted. Quiet, tense, and loaded with unspoken words. I'm still living in this weird half-life, not fully acknowledging the elephant in the room, but also not ignoring it either. I've been putting off the inevitable for days, telling myself I just need more time to think it through, to figure out what I want to do. But here's the thing, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep pretending I don't know what I know, or acting like we're just going through a rough patch. I can't just sit here and let everything fall apart without saying something. I'm not ready for a big confrontation. I'm not sure I'll ever be, but I've got to do something. So today, I finally decided to ask Rachel, flat out, where things stand. Not in an aggressive way. More like, trying to get her to admit it, to acknowledge what's been going on. It was late afternoon, the kids were at soccer practice, and it felt like the right time. I don't know why, but I had this gut feeling that if I let it drag on much longer, I might just explode one night when I'm not expecting it. And I didn't want that. I didn't want to be that person, screaming at her or throwing accusations. I just wanted the truth. So I walked into the living room where she was sitting, scrolling through her phone. I could feel my heart pounding. I was nervous, but also just tired of the silence. I stood there for a minute, watching her, and then I just said it. Rachel, what's going on with us? You don't have to tell me everything, but I need you to be honest with me. Is there someone else? She looked up at me, and for a moment, I thought maybe she would just say it. That she'd come clean. But instead, she froze. I could see her trying to figure out how to play it off, how to keep the lie going, but then she just shook her head. You're being ridiculous, Ethan, she said. Her voice was calm, too calm. She didn't sound angry or defensive. It was like she was trying to stay in control. There's nothing going on. I told you, I'm just busy with the book club. You're just overthinking it. I didn't buy it. Not for a second. But I didn't call her out on the lie. Not yet. Instead, I just looked at her, trying to read her face, trying to see if she would slip. You don't have to lie to me, Rachel, I said quietly. I already know. She stared at me, and for a split second, I saw a flicker of something in her eyes. Maybe guilt. Maybe fear. But it was gone so fast, I almost wondered if I imagined it. She didn't say anything. She just looked down at her phone again, like she hadn't heard me. I didn't press her further. I didn't yell or beg for answers. I just left it at that. But something inside me snapped. Maybe not in a dramatic way, but I could feel the walls going up. I couldn't keep living like this, pretending like everything was fine, when I knew it wasn't. I needed answers. I deserved answers. And I wasn't going to let her keep getting away with this. I don't know what comes next. I don't know how this is going to play out. But I'm done with the silence. I'm done pretending. And for the first time in a long time, I feel like I might finally be ready to face whatever comes next. After I asked Rachel that question, I thought there might be some kind of shift. Like, maybe she'd crack. Maybe the truth would come out, and we could start dealing with this mess. But nope. The silence just stretched out even longer. It felt like we were both pretending the other didn't know. That night, she barely looked at me. No apology, no explanation, nothing. She just went about her routine like nothing had happened. And I couldn't keep pretending either. I didn't sleep at all. Just lay there staring at the ceiling, wondering what to do next. The thing is, I don't even know why I'm still asking for answers. I have everything I need to walk away. I found the texts. I saw the hotel receipts. I know who the guy is, or at least, enough to know that she's been seeing him for months. But every time I think about confronting her again, I get this wave of hesitation. Like I'm not ready to face whatever comes after the truth. I've been avoiding her. It's not healthy, I know, but I don't know how to look her in the eye right now. Every time I do, I just see the person who lied to me, who betrayed me. And it hurts more than I thought it would. But here's the thing, I can't keep living like this. The longer I stay in this limbo, the worse it gets. I keep thinking about the kids. What happens if I leave? Do I even want to stay in this marriage anymore? Do I want to try to fix it? Part of me still hopes she'll come to me, admit everything, and we can work through it. But another part of me feels like I've been broken too many times already. I don't know if I can come back from this. I'm stuck. I need to decide what I'm doing, but the choice feels impossible. It's been a few more days, and I feel like I'm losing my grip on everything. I don't know if it's the pressure, the waiting, or just the constant tension, but I'm starting to feel like I'm living in a nightmare that I can't wake up from. Rachel's still acting like everything's normal, but I can't do it anymore. I can't keep pretending that I'm okay with what's going on. I don't know why, but I finally snapped today. It wasn't anything big, nothing dramatic. It wasn't some epic confrontation. But when she walked in from work and gave me that same fake smile, like everything was fine, I just couldn't hold it in anymore. You're still lying, aren't you? I said. The words just came out of my mouth before I could stop them. Rachel froze, her smile dropping for just a second, but she recovered quickly. What's that supposed to mean? She asked, her voice suddenly sharp. You know exactly what I mean, I shot back. I didn't yell. I didn't raise my voice. But the anger was there. It was building, and I could feel it in my chest. I've been asking for the truth for weeks now, and you keep feeding me the same stories. I know what's going on, Rachel. So why don't you just tell me? Her face hardened. She didn't try to deny it, didn't try to cover it up. She just stared at me like I was the crazy one. You're making a big deal out of nothing, she said, her voice low. Nothing's going on. I'm just stressed. You wouldn't understand. Something in me snapped. I was done. Done with the lies. Done with the excuses. You're really gonna sit there and tell me it's nothing? While you've been sneaking around, meeting up with him. You think I'm stupid? Rachel's eyes flickered, but she quickly masked it. I'm not doing anything wrong. You're being paranoid. We're fine. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. We're fine? I just shook my head. You know what? I don't think we are, I said, my voice quieter now, but still firm. I don't think you're the same person anymore. And I'm tired of being lied to. She looked at me like she was going to say something else, but then just turned around and walked out. No apology. No attempt to explain herself. Just nothing. And in that moment, I realized something. I'm done. I don't know if I can forgive her for this. I don't know if there's any way back. Maybe I've known for a while, but I've been too scared to admit it. But now? I think I'm ready to move forward, whatever that looks like. I don't have all the answers yet. I don't know what comes next, but I can't keep waiting for her to come clean. I have to start making decisions for myself, for my future. The choice isn't easy, but I feel like it's time to finally make it. It's funny how everything can change in just a few moments. How one conversation, one moment of clarity, can shift everything. After Rachel walked out that night, I spent a long time just sitting there, staring at the walls, trying to sort out what I was really feeling. The anger was still there, sure, but it wasn't just anger anymore. It was a mix of frustration, exhaustion, and something I couldn't quite put my finger on. It was like I'd finally reached my breaking point. I kept thinking about everything, the lies, the secrets, the distance between us. I thought about the years we spent building a life together, about the kids, about everything that was at stake. But what was the point in holding on to something that wasn't real anymore? Rachel wasn't the person I thought she was. She wasn't even trying to pretend to be anymore. And I wasn't going to keep wasting my time hoping things would magically get better. The hardest part of all this isn't even the betrayal. It's the fact that I'm letting go of something I thought was solid, something that I thought would last forever. The hardest part is realizing that no matter how much I loved her, sometimes love just isn't enough to fix a broken relationship. So I made a decision. I'm done. I'm done with the lies. I'm done being the only one who cares about fixing this. I'm done being the one who's trying to hold everything together while she's out there living a separate life. I don't have a plan for what happens next. I don't know if I'm going to file for divorce or just ask her to leave. I don't even know how I'm going to tell the kids yet, or if I should wait. But I do know one thing, I can't keep doing this to myself. I can't keep pretending everything's fine when I know it's not. I thought I'd feel relief, or some kind of sense of peace, after making this decision. But right now I just feel numb. Maybe it hasn't fully hit me yet. Maybe it won't for a while. But it feels like the right thing. The only thing. Rachel hasn't come back yet. I don't even know where she is. I don't care. If she really cared about saving our marriage, she'd have made that move by now. But I'm done waiting for her to fix it. I'm going to take control of my own life. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm finally ready to move on. For me. For the kids. For whatever comes next. And that feels like the first step in the right direction. The next day, Rachel came home late again. She didn't even try to pretend like she was sorry. She walked in with her usual air of indifference, like she hadn't just spent another night out doing God knows what. I was sitting on the couch, waiting for her. I don't know why, but I knew I couldn't put this off any longer. I needed to face her, to say the words that had been building up for so long. When she walked in, she didn't even look at me at first. She just hung her coat up and started heading for the kitchen. I couldn't let her just drift by like nothing was wrong. Rachel, I said, my voice firmer than I expected. We need to talk. She froze, but only for a moment. Then she turned around, rolling her eyes. I don't have time for this, Ethan. What now? I could feel the anger bubbling up again, but I kept my voice steady. No more lying. No more pretending. I know everything. Her face went white for a second, but then it was gone, replaced by that defensive mask she's been wearing. You're insane. I told you already, there's nothing going on. I shook my head. Don't keep telling me that. You've been lying to me for months. I know about him. I know about the hotels. I know you've been sneaking around behind my back. Her eyes shifted to the floor for a split second, and that's when I knew I was right. But she wasn't ready to admit it yet. You don't know anything. You're just making things up. No, Rachel, I'm not. I've seen the messages. I know who he is. I'm done being in the dark about this. She opened her mouth, probably to deny it again, but she stopped herself. Her face crumpled for just a second, like she might actually say something real. Then she just turned her back on me and started pulling things out of the fridge. I don't know what you want from me, Ethan. I'm tired of talking about this. And right then I realized something. I didn't need her to apologize. I didn't need her to beg for forgiveness. I just needed the truth, and I wasn't getting it from her. I stood up, feeling more resolute than ever. I want honesty, Rachel. But if you can't give me that, then I'm done. She didn't say anything after that. She just stayed in the kitchen, the space between us growing even wider. I walked to the bedroom, sat down on the edge of the bed, and thought about everything. What came next? Did I have the strength to follow through on my decision? I wasn't sure, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to keep waiting around for her to change. Rachel hadn't followed me. I think she knew there was nothing left to say, and maybe I did too. I don't know if I'll confront her again or just make the decision on my own, but the choice is clear now. I can't keep doing this. It's time for something different. Something better. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. Rachel seemed to avoid me as much as possible, and I wasn't exactly looking for opportunities to talk either. It's like we were both waiting for something to happen, but neither of us knew what. She went to work, spent time out with friends, and I just kept doing the same thing. Staying busy, not asking questions, not engaging too much. The thing is, I knew I had to make a decision, but it was harder than I thought. I kept telling myself I was ready, that I had made up my mind. But when I thought about actually taking the steps to end things, a part of me hesitated. Not because I didn't know what she'd done, but because I didn't know what the fallout would look like. How would this affect the kids? How would it affect me? The thought of going through all the legal stuff, the custody arrangements, the splitting up of everything, was exhausting. But then, I'd think about how Rachel had checked out of this marriage months ago. How she hadn't even tried to fix it. And it made the decision a little clearer. It wasn't until Friday night that I finally pulled the trigger. Rachel came home around 9 p.m., looking like she'd been out with friends. She was wearing a short dress, high heels, her makeup a little too perfect, like she was trying to be someone else. I could feel the anger rise again, but I kept it in check. I couldn't do this in anger. I couldn't let her see that I was still hurting, even though I was. Rachel, we need to talk, I said, sitting down at the kitchen table. She looked at me, then shrugged like it was no big deal. About what? I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. I think you know. This marriage isn't working. I can't keep pretending like everything's fine. I don't know what happened to us, but I can't do this anymore. Her face tightened, and for a split second, I thought she was going to argue. But then she just stood there. She didn't cry. She didn't try to convince me to stay. She just nodded. Fine, she said, her voice cold. If that's what you want. Just like that. It wasn't the dramatic outburst I had imagined, or the heartfelt apology I thought I'd get. It was like she'd been waiting for me to say it. Like she had already checked out mentally, and this was just the last step. And honestly, it hurt. It hurt more than I expected it to. I thought I'd feel some sense of relief or closure, but instead, I felt a little empty. The words were out there, but they didn't feel final. Not yet. I don't know what comes next, I said, my voice almost a whisper. But we need to figure out the kids, and everything else. Rachel didn't respond right away. She just stood there, her arms crossed, like she was guarding herself. She took a deep breath, then looked me straight in the eyes. I'm not gonna fight you on it, Ethan. I'm not gonna make this harder than it has to be. You want a divorce? Fine. Do what you have to do. And that was it. No begging. No apologies. Just that cold finality hanging in the air between us. I thought I'd feel more decisive, but I didn't. I felt numb, like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, not sure if I was ready to jump yet. But I knew I had no choice. I wasn't going to keep living this lie. Rachel wasn't coming back to me, and even if she did, it wouldn't be the same. We were already too far gone. So, I made the call the next morning. I reached out to a lawyer. I don't know if it was the right move, but I couldn't wait anymore. I couldn't keep sitting here in this dead marriage while she kept playing her games. I didn't feel relieved. I didn't feel happy. But at least I felt like I was finally taking control of my own life. The next few weeks are going to be rough. I don't know how the kids will handle it. I don't know what Rachel will do next. But for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm doing the right thing for me. And that's all I can really focus on right now. The weeks since I called the lawyer have been a blur. I'm moving forward, but it's hard to shake the feeling that I'm still in a fog, like I'm watching everything unfold from the outside. The lawyer's office is where the real work begins, and that's when the reality of everything started to hit me. The divorce papers, the custody arrangements, the financial mess we'll have to untangle, it's overwhelming. But every time I think about backing out, I remember Rachel's face that night. How cold and indifferent she was. How she didn't even try to fight for me. I'm not looking forward to the fight ahead. The kids are asking questions, and I don't know how to answer them yet. I want to protect them from this, but I know the truth will come out eventually. Rachel hasn't said much about the divorce. She's just going through the motions, like it doesn't really matter to her. I've stopped looking for any kind of apology or remorse from her. It's clear I'm not going to get one. The hardest part is seeing how normal she's acting, while I'm struggling to keep it together. She's still going out, hanging with friends, acting like nothing's changed. Meanwhile, I'm here trying to pick up the pieces of what's left of our family. And it stings. Every time I see her laughing with someone else, it hits me that she's already moved on. She's living a life without me in it, and that hurts more than I expected. I signed the papers today. It wasn't as dramatic as I thought it would be. No tears, no angry words. Just a quiet, resigned feeling that this was it. It was the last step. I handed them over, and that was the moment I knew it was really over. Now I wait. The ball is in her court. I don't know how this will play out, but at least I'm finally moving in the direction I need to be. I'm doing this for me. For my kids. And maybe, just maybe, I'll find a way to breathe again. It's been a few weeks since I filed the papers. Honestly, it still doesn't feel real. I've had a few conversations with Rachel, mostly about logistics, the kids, the house. But nothing that feels like we're really talking anymore. She hasn't shown any real emotion about the divorce, and it's starting to mess with my head. I guess I thought she'd have some reaction, anger, sadness, guilt, something. But it's like she's completely checked out. Like she's just waiting for the next step, the next phase in her life, and I'm not even part of it. I won't lie, it stings. It's hard to see how little it seems to affect her. It's hard to realize that this whole time, I was holding on to something that she'd already let go of. But even through all the pain, I'm still relieved. There's a strange sense of freedom in knowing that I'm done with all the pretending, with all the lies, with all the uncertainty. The kids have been the hardest part. They're old enough to understand that things aren't right, but not old enough to understand why. They keep asking when things are going to get back to normal. I keep telling them that things will be okay, that they'll be okay. But the truth is, I don't know what that looks like yet. How do you explain to your kids that their mom and dad aren't going to be together anymore? How do you make them understand without making them feel like it's their fault? I don't have the answers. Rachel's still acting like everything is fine, like nothing has really changed. It's like she's completely separated herself from the whole situation. She doesn't ask how I'm doing. She doesn't care about what's going on with me. She just keeps doing her thing, living her life, whatever that looks like. And part of me still wants to be angry about it. I want to scream at her and demand some kind of emotional response. But then I remember how far gone this thing really is. I can't expect her to care when she's already made her choice. It's strange, though. There are moments when I almost forget what's going on. I catch myself thinking about the past, the way things used to be when we were happy. When I think about how we'd plan for the future together, how we talked about growing old and raising our kids as a team, I almost believe it again. Almost. But then the reality slaps me back in the face. I can't go back to that. I can't pretend it didn't happen. I can't pretend she didn't betray me. I've started looking into counseling. Not marriage counseling, I'm past that point, but for myself. I need to work through this. I need to stop living in the shadow of what was. I need to figure out how to be okay on my own, how to find some kind of peace with all of this. The lawyer says the process could take a few months, but I already know it's going to be longer than that. The emotional fallout is going to take years, not months. But the weird thing is, I'm starting to feel lighter. I know I'm still in the middle of this storm, but something in me has shifted. I'm taking control of my life again, one step at a time. I can't keep waiting for Rachel to fix this, because she never will. But I can fix myself. And that's the one thing I still have power over. I don't know what the future holds, but I know this: I'm not going to be stuck in this toxic cycle anymore. I'm moving forward. It might be slow. It might be painful. But it's progress. And that's all I can ask for right now. As for Rachel, I'm done trying to figure her out. I don't need her permission to move on anymore. I don't need her approval. I'm doing this for me. I don't know if she'll ever admit what she did, but I've come to terms with the fact that it doesn't matter. I've already made the choice to let go. And in time, I'll be okay. I hope she finds whatever she's looking for, but I know now that I need to focus on myself and my kids. Maybe one day, this pain will be a distant memory. But for now, I'm just taking it day by day. It's been a few months now, and I'm starting to see some kind of light at the end of this tunnel. I won't pretend that everything is perfect. It's not. There are days when I still feel the weight of the divorce on my shoulders. There are days when I look at Rachel and wonder what went wrong, but I've learned to accept that I may never get those answers. The divorce is almost final. The kids have adjusted, more or less. There are still some tough days, but I've been trying to be there for them, trying to keep things stable for their sake. They've been through enough, and I don't want them to feel like they have to carry this burden. They're still young, and they deserve to feel safe and loved, even if things aren't the same anymore. Rachel and I have minimal contact now. We're just co-parents, making sure the kids are taken care of, making sure the schedule works. The animosity between us is still there, but it's more of a quiet distance now. I think she's moved on, and honestly, I have too. It took time, but I finally realized that I can't keep holding on to the past. We weren't the same people anymore, and pretending we could be wasn't going to fix anything. I've started doing things for myself again. It's not easy. There's still that nagging doubt that I'm doing this all wrong, that I'm not enough, but I'm working on pushing that voice aside. I've started picking up old hobbies, getting out more, meeting people. It feels strange at times, like I'm rediscovering parts of myself I'd forgotten about, but it also feels freeing. I don't have to answer to anyone anymore. I can just be. I'm not saying I've completely healed. There are still moments when it hits me, when I catch myself thinking about the life Rachel and I could have had. But those moments are becoming fewer and further between. It's starting to feel like a chapter in my life that I've closed. And though I'll always have the scars, I think they're healing. Maybe one day, I'll be able to look back and see this as something that made me stronger. Right now, I'm focused on moving forward. I'm focused on being the best dad I can be, on taking care of myself, and on finding peace in a life that's entirely my own. I don't know what comes next, but I'm ready for it. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm in control of my own future. And that's enough for me.